It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Wilberforce head women's basketball coach, Coach Rachel Naughton. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college women's basketball?
Yeah. My journey began when I played college basketball. I wasn't interested in high school, but I used to always be inspired by the coaches that supported me and the coaches that really cared about their players. When I was in high school, I was pregnant. I got pregnant my junior year in high school. I was just a different teenager, is sort of say. I've been through a lot at that moment, and at that time in my life, should I say? I can't even say at that time, but I was going through so much trauma from age 6 years old. I was molested at 6, and now I can talk about this story, and it just rolls off my tongue so easily, and it's because I've worked on it over the years. But you figure from age 6 up until 14, 15 years old, I've been carrying myself and protecting adults. So I was a different teenager. I wasn't your average teenager. So I carried my life and myself totally different. I didn't think I was grown, but I had already matured. Unbeknownst to me, I was already so mature. So the responsibilities that I had, I took on as an adult. I got pregnant, and that was a means to get away from what I was experiencing at that time in my life. And basketball was that tool. So when I told my coach that I was pregnant, it happened in the game when I found out. I didn't know. I was playing in a game, and I couldn't stand up. This is halftime, and I was like, "Oh, coach, my back is killing me." So at halftime, he's rubbing like Ben Gay on my back, and rubbing. I'm like, I can't stand up, And this is a postseason game. We're in the playoffs now. And I said, "Coach, I can't stand up. I can't get back in the game." And at this point, I had like 12 points, 13 rebounds, and he was like, "Oh my goodness!" So I couldn't get back in the game. Anyway, I didn't go to school that next morning. So it wasn't until that following evening that I went to the doctor and found out that I was pregnant. My mouth dropped wide open, but my mouth dropped wide open because my mother's mouth dropped wide open, and I was always like mirroring her reaction. Meanwhile, I was in denial. I sort of knew that I was because I felt my body changing. I was throwing up in the morning. I was hiding it. I was so scared to tell my family, but I knew that what type of family I was, born into. They was very supportive. So when I told my mother, I was quite nervous about telling my father, but she left that up to me to tell him, and it went well. But leading up to that point was a little nerve-wracking. But I was like 5.5 months when I found out, and so the baby was actually in my back, in my lower back. So I had to keep massaging that area to kind of push him towards the front of my belly, and I just went with it. I went back to school. I finished school. It was just so many resources out there at that time for pregnant teens, and I just took advantage of all of them. And at the time, my coach allowed me to bring my son to school with me. I played basketball still. It was a little challenging to go to class, but the way I had it set up, because I was a senior at that time, I was able to maintain. And then they put me into like a pregnant school called Ida B. Wells in Queens, and everything worked out perfect, for me. I think, God willing, it was a blessing. And it still was a challenge being a young mother, but I was able to persevere. So those coaches, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I just love telling that story because it can inspire so many other young ladies, who end up in that situation. But that coach and my coach my few coaches after that, they just inspired me and supported me. Even when I went to St. Paul's, and I know that might be, a question, a segue to the next question, but my coach John Hill, uh, St. Paul's College had a single parent support system. So I was able to bring my son to school with me. The other colleges that were recruiting me didn't have a place for a child. So St. Paul's was like the perfect setting for me.
What
So
was that
that,
experience
because
like going to St. Paul's and getting to play collegiate basketball and putting on that uniform?
it was amazing. It was amazing because I was able to do everything that I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to play college basketball. I knew that I wanted to bring my child. I knew that I wanted to be a valedictorian. I knew I wanted to have a 4.0. I knew I wanted to get the class. All the little short-term goals that I had, I was able to, you know, uh, accomplish at St. Paul's. So it was just an amazing experience for me.
After getting to play for St. Paul's, what was that like getting into coaching and starting your coaching journey?
It was challenging at first because I didn't know how I was going to be received. When I graduated from St. Paul's College, my coach that I played under asked me to come back and help him, and if I wanted to do so. He said there wasn't going to be much or any money involved, but that it was more valuable that he asked me to come coach with him and learn from him. So that was the reward, and I was able to coach my peers, individuals that I was on recruiting trips with, individuals that I grew with, individuals that, we conjured up against coach to do certain things, you know what I mean? So that was challenging for me. But once I got into the coaching realm, it was amazing. I was able to just kind of turn that peer off and be on that administrative role. So it was just a gratifying experience.
How's that experience like getting to coach at your alma mater?
Can you repeat the question?
How was that experience like, as you said, getting to coach at your alma mater?
It was something that I could always take with me, and it's heartfelt because now St. Paul's College is closed. So I have such wonderful memories as a student, as staff, or should I say, just as a part of the coaching staff. I had those experiences and those memories because even I coached about 3 years there, and I didn't get paid. So I just have those wonderful experiences and the knowledge that I was able to take from those two coaches that I coached under.
What was that experience like becoming a head coach for the first time and going to Baltimore City Community College?
It was a different experience for me because once I got into the coaching position, it wasn't long after, but the pandemic erupted. So we really didn't have a season. When I first got there, they hired me late, so I wasn't able to recruit, and we didn't have a team. I was able to train the young ladies that were there, but it wasn't enough girls, and they weren't really skilled to play at that level. This is Division I JUCO. And after doing research and scouting other teams that we would have been playing, there was no way we'd have been able to compete. The men's coach, we both got hired around the same time, but he's very competitive. Not that I wasn't competitive, I was more realistic. He decided to play his season, and they got beat by 100, like several games. You figure between 50 and 100 points margin, losing, that's just wasn't part of my makeup. So the pandemic went on for about, 3 to 5 years. So, I really didn't get a chance to step foot on the coaching sideline. Well, I was able to train. I trained at Coppin State because we had a gas leak in the gym. So, it's just so many different variables that prevented me from actually coaching on sideline at Baltimore City Community College.
What was that transition like for you leaving Baltimore City Community to come to Wilberforce?
Again, I was hired and not enough time to really recruit. So that experience that transition, it was a blessing. I loved it because this is something that I wanted to do at this point. I knew what I wanted. And regardless of the pay, not saying that, I couldn't pay bills, but regardless of the salary, I jumped in and said, you know what? Because I've always worked for self and it was always performance-based. So it wasn't something that I, said I can not do. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put my all into it and God will reward me at the end. And I did. I gave it 100% because at this point, you're graded from 0 to 100. There's no really 150% or whatever, but I gave it my all. And anything that I do, I put my all into it. So with that, I just value that position. I valued my coaching position, and I still do. I'm so competitive, and I just want the best for these young ladies that was brought into my life.
For you, what was that feeling like as a head coach stepping onto that court for the first time?
It's inexplicable. My first game, I wasn't nervous. I was so excited. I was excited for these young ladies because we put in work. And we had limited resources, so all the things that I did want to do, I might have been. I had really high expectations. So, and I never let those expectations, like supersede what, the reality of the situation is. So I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and do the best I can to, exceed that. But just standing on that sideline and looking around, I didn't even care if it was 2-3 people in the stands. But, that first game, we had some supporters and looking at the girls' faces and the young ladies' faces. So it was just the most gratifying feeling.
Of course, when you got started, what was that feeling like getting handed the keys to the program to start the program?
I just wouldn't smile. I was grateful every day. Every morning I got up and I thank God, and I just wrote down the things that I was grateful for in my phone. I had a journal as to what I did in the morning and what I did before I went to bed. So I just kind of kept a journal of what my first year was like at Wilberforce, just so I can look back and then be better this year. My first year was it was challenging because I don't like to lose. And I didn't really get a chance to recruit. So, these young ladies were, players that, just wanted a chance to play. And, we gave them that chance and we did well. We superseded, I exceeded the expectations because the year before they really won one game because the other game, they won 2 total, but one game was by forfeit. So, we won 11, this year. And we left a lot of wins on the table because in spite of the young ladies that I didn't recruit, they were young ladies that were talented. They were very talented. But that team cohesion, it was inconsistent, which left us a lot of games and left the wins and losses very inconsistent. There was games that we was on a roll, and then we're like, wait a minute, we just beat this team. How did we lose to this team? So the inconsistency is really what I'm going to be focused on this year and focusing on, discipline and just want good citizens and young ladies that want to win. And I'm not saying these young ladies that I just previously coached didn't want to win. It's just there's so many distractions that I'm looking forward to avoiding for next season.
As a head coach, what was that feeling like getting to build your coaching staff and your players around you?
Well, I didn't have a coaching staff. I didn't have an assistant coach. So it was just me. So they only heard my voice, which was challenging because I know what it's like to have a staff and not to be so easily accessible. Because that can be taken as a negative when you want certain things out of your players. You do need another voice. You need another vessel for these players to connect with and interact with on a daily basis. Interacting with the head coach can be a negative thing later on in the season, where you're easily accessible, where they feel they just are privileged, and being able to talk to you, that's valuable time. Where they expect you when you don't have an assistant, they expect you to give them that time because there's no one else. So I think that was one of the challenges that I faced. And just having someone to even just talk basketball with was a challenge because there was times when I was frustrated and I didn't have anyone to really discuss, these games and these moments with, so.
What was that feeling like getting your first win as a head coach?
Oh, it was amazing. It was great, but I always want more. I wanted to win the next game. I wanted to win the following game. I wanted to win the game after that, So I always, and it just kind of, elevated my expectations. So it was a pro and a con.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players?
At Wilberforce, a typical game day would be me wake up in the morning, I have to go feed them. I have to make sure I have to go buy, Sam's Clubs. I have to get them their pregame snacks. I have to get them their water. I have to make sure that their jerseys and uniforms are in place. I have to make sure that, the referees have their water, their snacks. I have to make sure that the locker rooms are set up for the away team. I have to make sure that the game day chairs and everything is set up. It's just so much that took place on game day that it prepared me for this upcoming year. I had to make sure that we have the books. I had to make sure that we had stats. A statistician, someone to keep the stats. It was just a lot. It was a lot on game day, and make sure the girls were there for shoot around. So it was a lot, but it was, again, it was a blessing because it prepared me. So now next year it can make things a little bit more easier because of the template that I was able to create for this past season.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to build for Wilberforce?
Yeah, the culture that I built thus far is the fact that I am there. I'm consistent. I haven't missed a practice, haven't missed a game. I remained healthy, mentally sane, letting them know that student first, making sure that they are in a classroom, they're doing their work, communicating with their professors is key. First, they're student athletes. I'm a scholar, so I love school. So I will never put the athlete before the student. I will never put wins, in front of, winning in the classroom. They're there, yes, to represent the school, but this school was built upon education, academics, not athletics. So that's the type of culture that, I'm continuously to, growing upon to keep that momentum.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Competed against like Stillman, Dillard, Voorhees, Talladega, Fisk University, and the conference is growing. They added 2 more schools and possibly another. I think it was 2 schools that they added. So it's about 15 teams now in the conference, whereas this past season we had 13. We had the East and the West Division. And some of the schools that just, joined the conference. We just joined this conference. They changed the name from GCAC to HBCUAC. And the commissioner thought that was a great idea to change it. I think it was great for branding. But there's some very competitive schools that are in this conference.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Talladega and Dillard comes to home versus going to Virginia Islands?
I think it's something for the fans to connect to, and when they connect it to, their players and their peers. So some of them are taking classes with some of the fans in the school. We have our little dog pound because our mascot is a bulldog. So we have a little dog pound where they sit there, they just, cheering their teammates on, some negative things, some positive things, but, they're kids. You could avoid that. But, once we started, winning games at home, we started growing the crowd, and there's times I'm like, wow, look at this crowd. We have our band here, So it was always competitive, especially when we played against our rival, Central State, which is really across the street. You can spit across the street and you're there on Central State campus. And this year, we beat them. So it's the first year that, they beat them. I don't know if ever, but we beat them this year. Everyone thought we were going to lose, and we stunned a lot of people. I mean, after the game, when we won, people were just looking at me like they saw a deer in the headlights, like they were a deer in the headlights. So it was gratifying because they didn't expect us to win. But
so far as head coach, what have been some of the things you've been able to accomplish so far?
Just one, turning the program around. I was able to bring in sponsorships. I was able to bring visibility to the campus. And at the same time as our enrollment has been growing. So it's also been, mirroring what I've been doing for the athletic program. Was able to get sponsorships for uniforms, sneakers. We have our own shoe now, the Wilberforce, the Force sneaker, led by and sponsored by AM1, which also has a history of our culture, in basketball. So, with the history of Wilberforce being the first HBCU and the oldest HBCU, we've been in systems since 1856. You figured, that I thought that was a great synergy. And that's been rewarding for me just to see, where we are now as a program. And it's something that I've done within a year.
What does that recruitment process look like for prospective student athletes, and as head coach, what do you look at in them?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes, and as head coach, what do you look at in them?
I want to make sure they're good citizens first, and I want to make sure that they are coachable, because there's a lot of good players out there that are not coachable. And I've experienced that, recently, where players just were not coachable. And every time you say something, there's excuses. Well, I want a winner. I want someone who wants to win. And as they say, winners find a way to win, and losers find excuses. So that's what I'm looking for. Everything else I can, control. I can look at a player, see if they can compete in this conference, and see what I want. I know what I want in a player, so and I also know what I don't want. So I have that ability to decide if they're coachable. So that's what I'm looking for, a coachable player.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time representing the school?
Um, for them, I know it's an accomplishment because for freshmen, they're just coming out of high school, and if I recruited them, you know, they know how to win. They're dogs, quote unquote, as as we say nowadays. But just to see them compete once they put it on and seeing them compete, oh, they're gonna have the jitters. They're gonna be a little nervous at first. But me as a head coach, I would make sure that they're confident enough to, kind of just, carry out their skill set and display their confidence on the court.
What is that like getting to see those seniors putting on that jersey for the last time representing Wilberforce?
It's emotional. I watched a few this year. Uh, their senior year, some of the seniors on my team, again, I faced some challenges, but I know it's emotional for them. I know it's emotional putting on that last uniform. We know whether they're going to get the playing time or not. I know that's important from some seniors that I just learned this year. But also, you got to put it in the work throughout the year. Just because you're a senior doesn't mean you get to play. You have to earn that right to play. And if I'm the head coach, you got to put in work. Nothing is handed to you. And I think a lot of these young people feel like things are handed to them. You got to put in that work. So whether you're a freshman or senior, you're going to earn your time on the court. Just because you put on that uniform don't necessarily mean that you deserve to play.
As the head coach, what is it like seeing them achieve those first big milestones in their careers, like first points, first assists versus 1,000 career points?
Oh, that's awesome. This year I have three players that really scored a lot of points. I had one player alone. She came in second semester and scored 300 points, whereas then she was overlooked because of the time and she came in, and because of the lack of resources at our school, we didn't have a sports information director, so it kind of hindered her ability to really show out what she can do. So I think that that's one of the things that we can work on this year. And I spoke with the administration of my school, and they agreed. So we're going to make things better for those individuals that have over achieved, should I say? But we had some students. I had one player, who did win second team All American. She scored a lot of threes. She shot a lot of threes, and it was very deserving of her to receive an award. And for my other player, Lanaya Early, she should have received a reward, and in an award, Again, so just seeing her reach that milestone was emotional for me because I know where she started, and she's faced some challenges, some personal challenges throughout her career, even though she's a young player. And for Michaela Tucker, she also just seeing her, receive the award and taking a picture of her, I can go back and look at the picture and see the joy in her face. It's gratifying for me as a coach.
As a coach, what is it like getting to see them going on and playing, whether it's in the WNBA or getting into coaching afterwards?
Oh man, I have a player that's playing in WNBA now. I coached AAU for 11 years, and one of my players, I remember when she first started, she was in sixth grade, and she told me that she wanted to play for me. She said, "I want to play for Coach Naughton," and she played with me for several years. And I watched her. She went on to James Madison University, graduated, and went to grad school at Louisville, and got drafted. She played with Minnesota, and she got relieved. She played overseas, came back. I told her to stay inspired and keep working out because your time is there. Once you get drafted, your stock is gold. You're valuable. And just watching her go through that, she had some, emotional challenges, which is expected because you're not, you don't know what you're going to do. But, just to inspire her and let her know, hey, you have my support. You can talk to me anytime. And watching her go from there, and now she's back and she's playing in Unrivaled and the three, I think it's the 3-on-3 with the women's professional league. Just watching her go through that has been emotional for me. My assistant coach at the time, she passed away, and she was also my best friend, Nancy Dougherty, and she was my best friend. I learned a lot from her, and we was just always talking basketball. She texts me 2:00 in the morning at times, and then we'll get into a conversation, So just watching, Kiki Jefferson just excel and grow and perform. It's just been emotional for me.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
just to, just kind of continue this momentum. I know where we are now, and I know where we need to be. So I'm going to do everything I can to get us where we need to be. Whether if it's getting some sponsors, or just getting more of our alumni involved, just talking to administration, and getting bringing in good students, bringing in some good citizens. That's where I want it to be. I want us to have a fruitful blend of resources for our student athletes.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's basketball?
Communication and commitment. Being a student athlete requires a lot of commitment, a lot of time, and resilience, because not everything's gonna go your way. Especially, being that we're on the road as a student athlete and traveling, you got to be committed, and you have to follow the rules. You have to be mature, in handling situations. You have to tell people, no, I can't do this. You have to be able to kind of, just, make your own decisions at times and follow the rules at the same time, because you are a young adult. What I heard a lot was, I'm grown. Okay, you're grown. Being grown requires a lot of responsibility, and no matter where you are, your parents were grown when they were working for their employer. There's always rules in place that you have to follow rules. So with that, being grown, you have to follow rules. And being a student first is a lot of responsibility. And then now you're a student athlete representing the school. you gotta be committed.
What advice would you give those college juniors transitioning into being seniors and leading the program?
Just being great women. My advice would be just take what you've learned, and whether if it's a negative, you turn it into something positive. How it can make you a better woman. Because if I haven't contributed to you being a great woman, then I'm not doing my job as a coach. So they always talk to me. Communication is key, and building relationships. If that's not one thing that you've learned on a team, then something's wrong there. So building relationships, because they're gonna need that skill and being able to communicate when they go into their career, whether if it's in the pros, as a professional athlete, or as a professional career. The communication is key. You're gonna have to be able to talk to your human resources. You have to talk to your colleagues. You're gonna have to talk to your boss. So I think that's one of the key things that they would need to take from graduating.
What advice would you give those players that have aspirations of playing in the WNBA?
Working at it. It's not all what you see. Everything what you see is what you don't see the behind the scenes. Everybody talks about Angel Reese. Okay, but I've coached against Angel Reese. When I was coaching AAU, she was a 7th grader, and I was coaching my 9th graders. This young lady was very, very, very talented, and she was a tall guard, which people fail to understand. She was a tall guard that can do everything. She was able to shoot. She was able to drive downhill. She was able to handle the ball, and as a 7th grader. So as she grew and got older, those teams were putting her in the post. So in college, she played in the post. In the pros, she's in the post. And what they don't understand is she's learning how to be a post player at the pro level. So people don't understand, like, those layups she's missing. She's still going hard. She's a dog. She goes hard in the paint, and people don't give her the respect that she deserves, because she changed from positions from where she was, excelled at. She excelled as a guard. It's at the next level she didn't play, and she didn't play until she played into the post. And I watch her now behind the scenes. She's working out with Lisa Leslie. I'm watching her. She's putting in that work. It takes a lot of hard work. Look at Stephon Curry. He puts in a lot of shots a week to be a great shooter. Even the bad shots, quote unquote, they're not bad shots to Curry. And you have to work at it. So it takes a lot of hard work. Yeah, you're in the gym, but what are you doing when you're in the gym? If you're in the gym for 2 hours, what did you do in those 2 hours matters.
What advice would you give those coaches that are looking to be head coaches on the college level and start up a program?
My advice is go to men's coaching clinics, talk to other coaches, have questions, and do research. What does it take to be a college coach? At what level do you want to coach makes a difference. my advice is to start at the younger level. Start volunteering. You know what I mean now, because then you see where your time is at. You see what you value. I volunteered for 11 years, didn't get paid. I paid for my own gas, my own tolls. My time was valuable because I was at home working as well. So there's a lot of times I'm putting into drawing up plays. So those are the things that you need to look at. Talk to other coaches and see what it takes. That would be my advice. Go to coaching clinics.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program app?
On social media, my handle is Eva_Preneur. Eva is my middle name, so it's EVA_Preneur, like entrepreneur. And my nonprofit is Ballin HBCU. That's my nonprofit where I introduce student athletes to HBCUs. And I throw events every year under my nonprofit. And, you can always find me on the Wilberforce women's basketball page as well.
Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Wilberforce as the head women's basketball coach.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.